Hello, everyone. This is A Bit of Business. My name is John FitzGerald, and on behalf of LearMedia.tv and the British and Irish Trading Alliance, welcome to the show. Technology, the cloud, computers. If you have ever had any burning questions about information technology or IT and what it is doing for your business and what it can do for your business, then this is the show for you. We all use it. We all expect it to work. We all depend on it. And when it doesn't function properly, we want it fixed as soon as humanly possible. Very few of us understand how it all works. However, my guest today has spent much of his working life focused on helping businesses get the very best out of their technology. Mark Williams from Pensar, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, John. Looking forward to it.
So a short background on Mark. Following an early stint in the army as an MP, Mark trained in information technology and went on to work as a trainee with Apple, of all people, around the time of the Apple Mac launch back in the mid-'80s. After various roles in the computer industry, Mark set up Pensar in 1996, and his business has grown significantly over the last 25 years. Mark is a very active BITA member and sponsor, receiving an award recently for his ongoing commitment to BITA in London. So, Mark, let's start with a very simple question. Can you sum up for us your business journey in 3 words, and also tell us, how do you describe your business to people that you meet?
Ooh, 3 words, John. That's a real challenge. Always different every day.
Fair enough. And how do you describe your business?
Such is the nature of IT. It's always changing. So we describe our business to the outside world, I guess, as being your IT department. We do everything IT related for normally small businesses that don't tend to employ their own IT people internally.
Right. So it's an outsourced model. So tell me, what to date, over the last 25 years, Mark, what have been the biggest challenges you've had to face as you've built your business?
Well, technological change happens all the time. So that's something you just have to get comfortable with. It's not for everybody. People they do become set in their ways. But we have to adapt all the time on a technological basis. As far as running a business goes, it's something I've had to learn largely on my feet. And I think we all look back on our businesses and think, actually, I could have done something slightly different earlier on. For me, it was like getting proper financial arrangements in place. We had a basic bookkeeper, but we got to the conclusion that wasn't good enough, really, and we need to employ a proper, outsourced finance director and an internal accountant-trained professional to look after the finances. And really taking those on board really started to change the business, and took that headache away from me as well, which is always good.
Oh, absolutely. And Mark, it seems like some people get computers and others just don't. So what are the biggest IT misunderstandings that you have to deal with on a daily basis?
Well, you're right, John. There are a lot of people. I mean, whenever we take on a new client, we look and say there's 20 people in the business, for example. 5 of those people potentially might be really competent IT users. They don't need much looking after. They tend to fix their own things and then just get on with it. At the other end of the scale, there's probably 5 to 10 people who struggle and they need a lot of support. And there's probably a few people in the middle, and our job is to get to know the people within a business as much as the technology, because we're delivering a people-based service. So we can only do that to the best of our ability once we know the people and once we know their level of both competence and confidence in IT. And they are different things, actually.
So how do you go about that, Mark, when you go into a new business for the first time?
So we spend a lot of time with our clients face-to-face initially. The reality of IT these days, John, is that most of what we do can be done remotely. But there really is no substitution for face-to-face, as we know, through BITA networking, for example. That's been tough the last couple of years, obviously, because we've had to do it via Zoom and Teams and other remote ways. But we always try and go and meet our clients at the earliest possible opportunity and spend some time just getting to know the people. And you very quickly pick up the level of competence of individuals and the level of confidence of individuals. And we try and we keep a little score that Fred Bloggs is confident but not competent, or vice versa. And that enables my team to adapt their manner and their support to individual people.
Very good. And IT and its use and its presence in our lives, Mark, has literally skyrocketed over the last 24 months due to the COVID pandemic. What with remote and hybrid working all of a sudden being extremely common and being very, very common very, very quickly. So in a short space of time, there's been a massive change. So what are the biggest challenges that you've had to face with your customers as they've tried to deal with continuing to run their businesses through the pandemic?
Yeah, I think the trend, John, to more remote and more flexible working was actually already happening pre-COVID. I think the whole pandemic situation just really, really accelerated that. So the move to cloud services and people needing to work wherever they are from whatever device they happen to have with them, that has been ongoing for a few years. COVID just brought it all to a head and prompted a lot of people to make the transition much more quickly. So to answer your question at the start, in March 2020, we spent about a month just trying to get all our clients set up working at home as best they possibly could. And that's been refined over time. Some companies struggled. Some companies were already fairly well set up. A lot of our clients during the pandemic have made a full transition to cloud. So they're not reliant on servers and infrastructure in physical offices. And as long as you have an internet connection, you can access the services and the data that you need to. So much so that virtually all of our clients now are in the cloud, with very few clients left that are reliant on servers in their office and infrastructure in their office. They can work anywhere. And that's a trend that's just going to continue. And we do this month in, month out still.
And when you say that trend to remote or hybrid working was already starting pre-pandemic, do you see a generational difference in the willingness or eagerness or desire to work remotely or have some sort of a hybrid arrangement? So the people coming out, the young folks coming out of university now, as they start on their journey, are they more keen to do that compared to somebody who's been in the workforce for 20, 25 years?
Absolutely, John. Yeah. I mean, there's various terminology here. Digital native is one well-known term. People coming out of uni or going into the job market for the first time, they are. There's an expectation that they will be allowed to work more flexibly than the days of going into an office Monday to Friday 9 to 5 and being sat at the same desk and using the same computer are pretty much long gone, and they were before COVID. As I say, it's just the whole pandemic's just accelerated that. So there's an expectation, certainly amongst the younger generation, that companies will allow flexibility, and that might be around time spent actually on work. Do they really need to do 9 to 5, or are they going to be judged on the results that they bring to the business rather than the time they put into it? And I think that's just a trend, as I say, that was already on the move, and COVID's just accelerated that massively. And I think we're seeing people coming, even when we interview people for our business, there's an expectation that even if you have offices still, and a lot of companies don't, that you won't have to come to offices. You won't have to work in a set, rigid manner. And as long as you are capable of doing the job and producing the results, it doesn't really matter.
So IT can be a significant cost for a small business, Mark. So what are the advantages and I suppose disadvantages of outsourcing IT support to a third-party provider such as Pensar?
So it does depend to a certain degree on the size of the business. But our sort of yardstick is if you're a sub 50 person company, it generally doesn't make sense to employ your own IT people. There may be some exceptions. You know, you may have very specific technological needs. You may require a specialization that only certain people possess. And it might make sense to employ someone directly. But most businesses that are using fairly standard software don't generally have the need to employ an IT manager or an IT person, because generally there isn't there isn't a full-time job for them. And even if they do, they become reliant on that one individual, and that one individual has to have holiday, they have to be trained, they're going to be sick occasionally. And when they do, what happens? So outsourcing is a means of having a team of people accessible to them. So we have a team of people, varying degrees of experience and ability, and we should be able to tick all the boxes. Financially as well, it's important because obviously, to employ a decent IT person, depending on what level you need to employ them at, but there's all the costs of employment on top of the pure salary, and it does generally work out. And I say generally because it's not cast in stone. It does generally work out to be a more cost-effective option to outsource.
Fair enough. And I guess looking at the last 24 months, Mark, there's been an explosion of new IT tools that have sort of bubbled up to help us. Zoom, GoToMeeting, Slack, Monday, WhatsApp, Squarespace, HubSpot, etc., etc. So what advice do you have for the small business owner out there who is simply trying to run their business and just really doesn't have time to stay on top of all of these latest tools or gadgets and the developments in the IT space?
Well, I would say it, wouldn't I? But that's what you employ an outsourcer for, to give you that guidance. I mean, yes, my team do day-to-day IT support where they're picking up the phones to people with problems or answering email queries, but it's a more holistic service. We're providing an IT management service as well. And I always say to people, if you were employing an IT manager, what would you ask of them? When you would ask of them those sorts of questions. I've seen this product called Monday or WhatsApp for Business or whatever it might be. What do you think of it? Should we be looking at it? Can you look at it for me? That's the sort of query that comes to us, as well as the day-to-day support stuff. So it's our job to keep abreast of those things and advise accordingly.
Well, building on that, Mark, what are the 3 most common issues that your customers come to you looking for support on?
Number 1, they've forgotten their password. It's always the first one. It's a lot of help around email, and these days around cybersecurity relating to email, people receiving rogue emails, and what do I do with this? That sort of question. And our job is really to actually educate people as much as support them. Make sure they're aware of the fact that there are a lot of scammers out there, and they can get caught out unless they're really sharp and unless they pay attention. So that would be another one. And then, since people have been working from home, a lot of Zoom and Teams related issues. These tools, again, both of them existed pre-COVID, but the use of these tools has absolutely exploded. And they're being improved all the time as well. So making sure that they're kept up to date, those tools, but there's still a lot of guidance that people need to get the best use out of these types of tools.
So let me come back to cybersecurity there for a second, Mark, because we hear news every day about data breaches, hacks, cybercrime. How has this evolved over the last 10 years? Is it more of an issue now than it was a decade ago? And what tools should every business have in place to mitigate cybersecurity risks? So
the answer, yes, it's the growth of this has absolutely exploded. 10 years ago, it's not that it didn't exist, but 10 years ago, it was mainly larger corporations that would be targeted. But nowadays, very small businesses can be very easily targeted, and cyber criminals can make money off the back of it. Typically, smaller businesses don't have the same budgets available to put protection in place. So the criminals realize that they're kind of easy game and easily exploitable. So almost every week we have we hear of something where a client or somebody we know has been compromised. Sometimes money's changed hands unwittingly. So our job is to make sure that there's a continual process of education, and all our clients have access to online cybersecurity awareness education. In terms of what people can do, number one, they can make sure that their stuff is backed up. That is the most important thing that people need to do. And people often assume that because they're on the cloud, that their data is backed up. That is not correct. So for instance, Microsoft 365, Google's the same. They only keep your data for a certain period of time. With Microsoft, I can't remember the exact figures, but it's like 30 days, 60 days maybe. And you need to make sure that you've got independent backup. So separate from Microsoft or separate from Google, whoever you're using, and make sure that that is maintained and looked after. And you keep that. And you keep that ad infinitum. Number two, enhanced security around email. So again, Microsoft and Google, to use the two main examples, they're getting better and better and better. But there are third-party tools that enhance the level of security and cut down the amount of stuff that might find its way into your mailbox. And obviously, if we can filter out all the obvious junk and anything that's got a virus in it and so forth, then that's good. So deliver clean email. And these tools are very cheap. You're talking about £2 or £3 per user per month. So it's not a huge investment that companies need to make, but it pays for itself.
Small investment, but high return for that investment. Correct. If you're safeguarding your business. Mark, last question for you today. How has GDPR and data ownership impacted the IT landscape over the last few years?
Well, it's made everyone more aware, which is no bad thing. When GDPR came out, everyone was scrambling to make sure they had policies in place and updating their contracts and so forth. And we were providing a lot of advice around that. It's become part of the landscape in general now. I say awareness has been a good thing. People are aware now that they need to take better care of data in general. And that's one of the roles that we have for our clients, is making sure that the data is obviously safe and secure, making sure that it's accessible to people who need it, making sure that it's recoverable if it inadvertently goes astray, but also making sure that the right data or the data doesn't get sent to the wrong people. And, that's the whole GDPR thing has really heightened people's awareness and made them much more aware of what they need to take care of data-wise. There are still a lot of gaps, and we still see a lot of gaps. And one of the things we do when we take on a new client, again, is try and identify those gaps in the way that their data is organized and the way that they share it both internally and externally. And just try, again, it's part of the education process to make them aware.
Fantastic. Look, Mark, thanks so much for your generous insights. And much of what you're talking about is common sense, but you know what they say about common sense. It's not that common. So folks, if you do have queries or questions for Mark, please do reach out to him at Pensar, and you can find his details online. Your website, Mark?
www.pensar.co.uk.
Fantastic. Okay, good stuff. Thanks for joining me today, Mark. Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been A Bit of Business. My name is John FitzGerald. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.